Do you really think someone like you deserves to be here?" The words came out cold, cutting, poisoned by arrogance. Harden barely looked up as he walked down the polished marble hallway of his mansion, passing the uniformed woman scrubbing the floor with wrinkled, tired hands. She was in her 60s, with graying hair pulled back in a tight bun, and she lifted her head for a moment, just long enough for him to see her eyes, moist, humiliated, but silent. She didn't respond. She just lowered her head and went back to work, as if she'd learned over a lifetime that some battles aren't worth the pain of fighting. Harden kept moving forward without looking back. Exclusive sneakers, gold chains gleaming around his neck, the scent of expensive perfume filling the air around him. He was one of the most talented players in professional basketball. By the age of 28, he had already won titles, million-dollar contracts, magazine covers, and millions of social media followers. His mansion boasted 4 floors, an infinity pool, a private gym, and an indoor court where he rarely trained. Because really, Harden no longer trained like he used to. He played. He showed up, he won, and that, for him, was enough. The cleaning lady he had humiliated was named Donna Luisa. She worked there 3 days a week, always punctual, always silent. She never asked for anything, never complained. She did her job with dignity, even when she was treated as if she were invisible. But that day, something inside her broke. It wasn't anger. It wasn't revolt. It was a deep sadness, the kind only those who have been trampled on too many times can feel. A sadness that hurts more than any scream. Harden walked into his room, threw his backpack on the Italian leather sofa, and turned on the stereo. The heavy beat of trap echoed off the walls. He looked at himself in the mirror, impeccable physique, tattoos that told stories of glory, eyes that shone with the absolute certainty of someone who had never been defeated. He smiled to himself. "I'm the best," he murmured, and he believed it with every fiber of his being. Downstairs, Donna Luisa put away the bucket, the rag, and the cleaning supplies. She put on her old coat, grabbed her worn purse, and left through the back door as she always did. But before closing the gate, she stopped. She looked up at the illuminated mansion, with its giant windows and golden chandeliers, and felt something strange in her chest. It wasn't envy. It wasn't desire. It was pity. Pity for that boy who had everything but knew nothing's worth. And it was at that moment, unbeknownst to anyone, that life began to teach Harden a lesson he would never forget. 3 days later, Harden was in the team's gym, surrounded by reporters, photographers, and press officers. It was press conference day before the deciding game of the regional finals. He was relaxed, almost bored, answering questions with that smirk that said, "I'd already won. I'm just here because I have to be." A reporter raised his hand. "Harden, your opponent tomorrow is known for being extremely technical and disciplined. Some analysts say he could surprise you. Are you worried?" Harden let out a short laugh, shook his head. "Worried? About who? I've been playing basketball since I was 5 years old. I've faced the best. I've beaten the best. There are no surprises for me. Tomorrow will be just another show." The room exploded with flashes. The advisor smiled, satisfied. But in the back of the room, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed, stood Coach Davis, the team's veteran coach. He didn't smile. His eyes narrowed, watching Harden with a mixture of disappointment and concern. He knew that kind of arrogance. He'd seen too many talented players fall because of it. After the press conference, in the locker room, Coach Davis called Harden aside. "We need to talk." Harden wrapped a towel around his neck, still sweaty from the tactical drill. "Hey, Coach, you're too confident. Confidence is what makes me win. No, preparation is what makes you successful. Confidence without preparation is just arrogance in disguise." Harden smiled, but it was a defensive, angry smile. "Coach, with all due respect, I know what I'm doing. I don't need a lecture before the end. I need space to play." Coach Davis stepped forward, his voice low but firm. "You've got talent, Harden. Talent to spare, but talent without humility is a ticking time bomb. And I've seen that time bomb go off before." Harden looked away, grabbed his backpack and left without answering. He didn't want to hear it. Not right now. Not when he was so close to another victory that would confirm once again that he was untouchable. But at night, alone in his giant, empty mansion, Harden felt something strange, a small, almost imperceptible nuisance, like a pebble in his shoe. He tried to ignore it, but the image of Donna Luisa came back to him. Her face, her moist eyes, the silence. And for the first time in a long time, Harden felt something he couldn't name. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was shame, or maybe it was just the beginning of a crack in his armor of arrogance. He shook his head, turned on the TV, and turned up the volume. But the discomfort remained, whispering deep within his soul. The gym was packed. 15,000 people cheered, shouted, and clapped in unison. The lights dimmed, and a spotlight illuminated the center of the court, where players from both teams lined up for the anthem. Harden stood in the middle, chest out, eyes fixed on the scoreboard, which was still at 0. He could already imagine himself there, at the end, with the numbers shining in his favor, lifting the trophy, hearing the crowd chant his name. On the other side of the court, the opponent, a player unknown to the general public, but respected by those who understood the game. His name was Malik. He didn't have Harden's imposing physique. He didn't have the gold chains or the $1 million endorsements. But there was something in his eyes, a hunger, a quiet determination, the kind you don't need to shout to feel. The game has begun. In the opening minutes, Harden dominated. Powerful dunks, dazzling dribbles, precise assists. He played with an almost disrespectful ease, as if he were training against children. The crowd went wild. His teammates cheered every play. Harden glanced at the opposing bench and saw Malik sitting, watching intently, expressionless. At the end of the first quarter, the score was 28-18, a comfortable advantage. Harden walked back to the bench smiling, grabbed his water bottle, and splashed some on his face. Coach Davis approached, but Harden ignored him, chatting with his teammates, laughing loudly, already celebrating a victory that hadn't yet arrived. In the second room, something changed. Malik took the court, and with him came a different energy. He didn't try to compete with Harden in showmanship. He played intelligently. He anticipated plays. He stole balls. He made unlikely passes. His every move was calculated, precise, as if he'd studied every detail of Harden's game. And perhaps he had. Harden started missing shots. He missed shots he never missed. He took blocks he didn't see coming. The lead began to dwindle. 38-32, then 42-40. And when the second quarter ended, the score was tied. 50-50. The silence on Harden's bench was heavy. Coach Davis tried to give instructions, but Harden wasn't listening. He was angry, confused, and for the first time in a long time, feeling something he wasn't familiar with. Pressure. At halftime, locked in the locker room, Harden punched his locker. The sound echoed off the walls. He was breathing heavily, sweat streaming down his face, hands shaking slightly. "This shouldn't be happening," he muttered to himself. "I'm better than him, I'm better than everyone." But deep down, a small voice whispered something different. A voice he tried to drown out, but which insisted on being heard. What if you don't go? The third quarter was a war. There were no more smiles, no more showtime. Harden played with anger, with desperation, trying to force plays that weren't working. Malik, on the other hand, played with composure. Each basket he made was celebrated with a discreet nod, a deep breath, as if he were thanking him for each opportunity. The crowd that had once chanted Harden's name was now divided. Some still cheered for him, but others began to admire Malik's resilience, the way he got back up after every fall, the way he never gave up, never complained, just played. With 3 minutes remaining in the third quarter, Malik stole the ball from Harden at midcourt and sprinted away. Harden raced after it, desperate to block it, but Malik leaped. It wasn't the highest dunk nor the most spectacular, but it was efficient, accurate, and when the ball went through the net, the gym erupted. The scoreboard now read 68-63, with Malik ahead. Harden stared at the scoreboard in disbelief. He had never trailed in a finals. Never. His knees were shaking, his hands were cold. For the first time in his career, he felt fear. Fear of losing, fear of not being enough, fear that everything he believed about himself was just an illusion. Coach Davis called a timeout. In the huddle, he tried to regroup, but Harden was distant, his eyes lost in space. One of his teammates put a hand on his shoulder. "Hey, come back to us. We need you." But Harden didn't answer. He was trapped inside his own head, drowning in toxic thoughts, in doubts he'd never allowed to exist. The fourth quarter began. Harden tried to react, but his body wasn't responding as it had before. His dribbles were slow, his shots were crooked, his decisions were poor. Malik, on the other hand, seemed to grow with each passing minute. He was no longer the unknown player. He was the protagonist of a story of overcoming adversity that was being written live, before thousands of eyes. With a minute left, the score was 89-82. Malik had the advantage. Harden had the ball, sweating, breathing heavily. He attempted a three-point shot. It was the shot he'd made 1,000 times in practice, the shot that always worked. But this time, the ball hit the rim of the rim, bounced twice, and fell out. The final whistle sounded. Malik and his team erupted in celebration. Hugs, tears, screams of pure joy. On the other side, Harden was on his knees at midcourt, hands on his head, eyes fixed on the ground. The defeat wasn't just the score. It was something much bigger. It was the fall of an empire he had built on sand. The crowd cheered Malik. Some even cheered Harden, but he didn't hear them. He couldn't hear anything but the deafening silence of his own defeat. The following days were the darkest of Harden's life. He locked himself in his house, refused interviews, and turned off his phone. Social media was ablaze, memes, criticisms, and technical analyses dissecting every mistake he had made. Some fans defended him, but most crucified him. Arrogant, overrated, and fraud were some of the words he read before finally deleting his apps. Donna Luisa returned to clean the following Monday, as usual. She entered through the back door, put on her uniform, and began working. Harden was in the living room, lying on the giant sofa, staring at the ceiling. He saw her pass, but this time he didn't say anything. He didn't have the courage. He felt ashamed, but didn't know how to express it. She cleaned the room in silence as she always did. But when she finished, before leaving, she stopped near him and said softly, "Are you well?" Harden looked at her, surprised. No one had asked him that. No one had cared how he was doing. They just wanted to know why he'd lost. He swallowed hard, but couldn't answer. Donna Luisa continued, with that calm, maternal voice, "I know I'm nobody to you. I know I'm just the person who cleans your house, but I see a lot of things, and I see a talented boy who forgot that talent alone doesn't sustain anyone." Harden sat down on the couch, finally looking into her eyes. "Why are you saying this to me? I was horrible to you." She smiled, a sad but genuine smile. "Because I was young once too, and I thought I knew everything. Life taught me that we only grow when we fall, and you just fell, boy. Now you decide, are you going to stay on the ground, or are you going to learn to get up for real?" She grabbed the bucket and left. Harden stood there alone, but for the first time in weeks, he felt something different. It wasn't relief, it wasn't a solution, it was just a small glimmer of hope. The idea that maybe, just maybe, he could become someone better. Harden spent the next few weeks in a state of deep introspection. He didn't return to training immediately, not because I didn't want him to, but because I knew that if he returned the same way, nothing would change. He needed to change internally first. He started waking up early, something he never did. At 5 in the morning, he would run through the empty streets of the neighborhood without headphones, without distractions. Just him, his heavy breathing, and the sound of his own footsteps. At first, it was unbearable. His legs ached, his chest burned, his mind screamed at him to stop. But he kept going, because for the first time, he wasn't training to impress anyone. He was training to find himself again. He began watching his own old games, but with a different perspective. Not to celebrate the incredible plays, but to identify the mistakes, the flaws, the moments of laziness and arrogance that he had ignored for years. And there were many. With each video, he felt a lump in his throat, realizing how much he had wasted, how blind he had been. One afternoon, he called Coach Davis. "Coach, I need help." There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, a hoarse, experienced voice. "Are you ready to hear what I have to say? Try. Then come tomorrow, 6 a.m, main court, alone." Harden arrived on time. The court was empty. Only Coach Davis was waiting in the middle, a ball tucked under his arm. He didn't smile, didn't say hello. He just tossed the ball to Harden. "Let's start from the beginning. Fundamentals. You're going to relearn how to play basketball." Harden frowned. "Coach, I know the basics." "No. You knew, but you forgot. Talent took you far, but fundamentals would take you even further. And that's what you're going to learn now." For weeks, Coach Davis put Harden through drills he hadn't done since he was a teenager. Basic dribbling, free throw shooting, simple passing, defensive positioning. No spectacle, no showtime, just the basics, repeated 1,000 times until they became instinct. At first, Harden was frustrated. He wanted to skip steps, go back to what he knew. But Coach Davis was adamant. "Do you want to be good or do you want to be great? Everyone can be good. Great requires sacrifice." And then Harden understood. He'd never really sacrificed himself. He had natural talent, so he'd never really had to work hard. And now, for the first time, he was learning what real sweat, real pain, and real humility felt like. 3 months later, Harden was physically and mentally transformed. He had lost weight, gained muscle definition, but most importantly, he had gained clarity. He returned to team practice, but he was a different player. He wasn't late. He didn't complain about the workouts. He didn't mock his teammates. He simply worked, day after day, with a discipline that surprised everyone. His teammates noticed. At first, they were suspicious. They thought it was a phase, that he'd soon revert to his old hardened self. But weeks passed, and the change remained. He began helping the younger players, offering advice and praising their efforts. Small gestures, but they demonstrated a real transformation. One day after training, one of the younger players approached him. "Harden, what happened to you?" Harden smiled, but it was a different smile. "It wasn't arrogance. It was peace. I lost, and it saved me." The young man didn't fully understand, but Harden didn't explain. Some lessons can only be learned by living. Meanwhile, Donna Luisa continued working at the mansion. But now, when she arrived, Harden would greet her, ask how she was, offer her coffee. Small gestures, but they meant the world. She never mentioned their conversation. She didn't need to. She could see the change in his eyes, in the way he moved, in the way he treated people. One day, Harden stopped her before she left. "Donna Luisa, I wanted to thank you." She looked at him curiously. "For what, boy?" "For seeing me when no one else did. For telling me the truth when everyone else was just flattering me. You were the only person who was honest with me. And I will never forget that." Her eyes filled with tears. She placed her wrinkled hand on his face and said, "You only needed to fall to learn how to truly fly. And now I see wings in you." She left, and Harden stood there alone in the doorway, but this time not feeling empty. Feeling whole, feeling human. The following season arrived. Harden returned to the court, but the spotlight was different. He was no longer the undisputed star. Malik had become the trendy player, the example of overcoming obstacles, the inspirational story everyone wanted to tell. And Harden was fine with that. He no longer needed the spotlight to validate his worth. He knew who he was, and that was enough. The first game of the new season was against Malik's team. The gym was packed. Everyone expected an epic clash, a tense rematch. But when the two met at center court before the game, something unexpected happened. Harden extended his hand. "You taught me a lesson I needed to learn." "Thank you." Malik shook his hand, surprised but respectful. You were the best opponent I ever faced. And I know you came back stronger, not stronger. More complete, the game began, and it was indeed epic, but not in the way people expected. It wasn't a battle of egos. It was a celebration of basketball. Harden played intelligently, humbly, and focused. He didn't try to steal all the spotlight. He played as a team, passed the ball when he should, defended with determination, and helped his teammates. And Malik did the same. In the end, Harden and his team won by one basket. But unlike last time, he didn't celebrate alone. He hugged each teammate, thanked the coach, and when the trophy was presented, he held it up not for himself, but for the entire team. In post-game interviews, when asked what had changed, Harden responded simply, I learned that true talent isn't about being the best. It's about making others around you better too. The words echoed. They became headlines. They became inspiration. Months passed. Harden continued to play at a high level, but now he was known not just for his plays, but for his character, for the way he treated fans, for the way he helped young people, for the way he used his platform for social causes. One day, he received an invitation to speak at a public school. He hesitated at first, but then accepted. When he arrived, he was greeted by hundreds of children, their eyes shining with admiration. He didn't prepare a speech. He simply spoke from the heart. I used to be the guy who thought he was better than everyone else, that I didn't need anyone, that I could treat people like trash just because I had talent. And you know what happened? I lost badly. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it taught me that no one wins alone. That respect is more important than trophies. And that true victory isn't in the scoreboard. It's in who you become in the process. The kids cheered. Some cried. And Harden realized that this was the real purpose. It wasn't about being remembered as the best player. It was about being remembered as someone who made a difference. That night, he returned home. Donna Luisa was there, finishing cleaning. He sat in the kitchen and drank coffee with her, talking about life, her hardships, the dreams she'd had and still had. And for the first time, he realized that this simple woman, whom he'd once despised, was infinitely wiser than he could ever be. Mrs. Louisa, can I ask you a question? Sure, boy. Why did you never give up on me? Even when I was terrible to you? She smiled, that tired but warm smile, because I saw potential in you, not the potential to be a great player. You already were that. I saw the potential to be a great man, and that is much rarer. Harden felt a lump in his throat. He had never heard words so powerful, so true. Thank you for everything. She placed her hand over his. You don't need to thank me. You just need to keep being this version of you, because the world needs more men like that. The season ended with Harden leading his team to the national finals. But this time, he wasn't alone at the top. He had a cohesive team, a coach who trusted him, and a mindset that couldn't be broken. The finals would be against a powerful team, but Harden wasn't afraid. He felt gratitude. The night before the final, he couldn't sleep. He got up, went down to his private court, the one that had previously been nothing more than a status symbol, and began practicing his shots. Each ball that went into the basket was accompanied by a memory. The humiliation with Donna Luisa, the loss to Malik, Coach Davis's words. Every painful memory was now fuel. He trained until dawn. When the sun rose, he sat in the center of the court, sweaty, exhausted, but at peace. I don't need to win tomorrow to prove anything. But I will win, because now I know what it means to be a true winner. The final was historic. Harden played the best game of his life. Not in numbers, not in statistics, but in leadership. He lifted his teammates when they were falling. He defended when no one else had the energy. He passed the ball at the right moments, even when he could have forced a man-to-man play. And in the last second, with the game tied, he received the ball, looked at the basket, and instead of shooting, passed to an open teammate. The ball went in. Victory. The court exploded. Confetti fell from the ceiling. The crowd roared. But Harden didn't run off to celebrate alone. He ran to hug his teammate who made the basket. Then he hugged every member of the team, then Coach Davis. And when he finally lifted the trophy, he looked up into the stands and saw Donna Luisa there, smiling with tears in her eyes. He pointed the trophy at her, and everyone understood that victory wasn't just his. It belonged to everyone who believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. In the days following the victory, Harden became a national phenomenon, but not because of his spectacular plays, because of his story of transformation. People identified with his journey, the fall, the humiliation, the rebirth. He began receiving invitations for speaking engagements, TV shows, and advertising campaigns, but he was selective. He only accepted those with purpose, those that could inspire, those that could truly make a difference. One of the first things he did with the prize money was to create a scholarship in Donna Luisa's name. The scholarship would be for young people from underprivileged communities who wanted to study and play basketball, but couldn't afford it. On the day of the launch, Donna Luisa was invited to the event. She didn't want to go, saying she didn't deserve so much attention. But Harden insisted. When she walked on stage, applauded by hundreds of people, she cried. Not from sadness, but from pure joy. Harden hugged her and whispered in her ear, "This bag isn't mine, it's yours. Because you taught me that true success is when we use what we have to help those in need." The audience rose to their feet in applause. And in that moment, everyone understood that this wasn't just about basketball. It was about humanity. Months later, Harden was at a charity event when a young man approached him. The boy was about 15, thin, shy, but with something in his eyes that Harden recognized immediately. Immediately. It was hunger. It was determination, but it was also insecurity. "Mr. Harden, can I speak with you for a minute?" Harden smiled and bent down to the boy's level. "Sure, and you don't have to call me sir. You can just call me Harden." The boy swallowed hard. "I play basketball at school, and I'm good. At least I think I am. But there's this kid on the team who's so much better than me. He makes everything look easy, and I practice so hard, but it feels like I'll never be like him. Sometimes I think about quitting." Harden put his hand on the boy's shoulder and looked deep into his eyes. "You want to know what I've learned? That comparison is the thief of joy. You'll never be that kid. But you know why? Because you don't have to be. You just have to be the best version of yourself. And that has nothing to do with talent. It has to do with character, with discipline, with how much you're willing to sacrifice." The boy listened attentively, absorbing every word. "I was once the talented kid who thought he didn't need anyone. And you know what happened? I fell hard. But it was in that fall that I learned to truly get back up. So don't give up, even when it seems impossible. Because greatness isn't in never falling. It's in getting back up every time you fall." The boy wiped away the tears that were beginning to form in his eyes. "Thank you, Harden. I'm not giving up. I know you won't. And years from now, when you're at the top, remember this conversation. And help someone else get up too." The boy nodded, smiled, and left. Harden stood there for a moment, watching the boy walk away, and felt a satisfaction no trophy had ever given. The satisfaction of knowing his words could change a life. The following season began with Harden in a completely different place mentally. He was no longer driven by ego. He was driven by purpose. Every practice, every game, every interview, everything had meaning now. He knew hundreds of young people were watching, inspired, trying to emulate not just his play but his attitude, and he took that responsibility very seriously. In a particularly difficult game, against an undefeated team, Harden was having a bad game. He was missing shots, losing balls, and drawing silly fouls. The crowd started booing. Some fans shouted cruel things, but Harden didn't react with anger. He took a deep breath, looked at Coach Davis on the bench, who nodded encouragingly and kept playing. In the fourth quarter, something changed. It wasn't a burst of talent. It was simply focus. Pure concentration. He stopped trying to make miraculous plays and started doing the basics perfectly. Solid defense, accurate passes, smart shots, and slowly his team began to react. With 30 seconds left, the score was tied. Harden had the ball. The entire court was silent. He could have forced the shot, tried to be the hero, but he saw an open teammate on the wing. Without hesitation, he passed the ball. The teammate took the shot and missed. The ball bounced off the hoop and went out. The whistle blew, defeat. The gym collectively gasped. Some fans cursed, but Harden went straight to the teammate who had erred and hugged him. It wasn't your fault. You were open. It was the right shot. It'll go in next time. His teammate, with tears in his eyes, thanked him. And there, in that defeat, Harden won something far more valuable than a game. He earned genuine respect. In post-match interviews, reporters expected him to blame his teammate, to show frustration. But he didn't. We lost as a team, and we will win as a team. That was the right pass. He was the best positioned. The result wasn't what we wanted, but the decision was correct, and I would do it again. Those words became headlines. Harden chooses team over ego, read the headline. And suddenly he wasn't just a player. He was a leader. One afternoon, Harden received an unexpected call. It was Malik. Hey, Harden, can I meet you? Sure, when? Today, if you can. There's something I wanted to talk to you about. They met in a discreet cafe, away from the spotlight. Malik seemed different, more tired, more thoughtful. What happened? Harden asked. Malik sighed. I'm going through what you went through. Not exactly the same, but I beat you in that final, and suddenly I became the story of overcoming. Everyone put me on a pedestal, and now I feel like I can't make mistakes, that I have to be perfect all the time, and it's suffocating me. Harden listened intently. He understood perfectly. You know what my mistake was? Harden said. I started believing what others said about me. I became the character they created, not the person I was. And when I lost, the character died. And I was lost. Malik shook his head. That's exactly it. I feel like I'm not me anymore. I'm what people expect me to be. So stop. Stop trying to be what other people want and get back to being you. Play for the love of the game, not for the glory, not for the spotlight. For the pure love of being on the court with a ball in your hand. Malik was silent for a moment, processing the words. Thanks, man. Seriously, I needed to hear that from someone who understands. We are adversaries on the court, but off the court, we are on the same side. The side of those who want to be better every day. They embraced. And there in that simple cafe, far from the cameras and flashes, a true friendship was born. A friendship based on mutual respect, vulnerability, and humanity. As the season progressed, Harden continued his transformation. But he realized there was one person he still needed to reach out to, someone who had been instrumental in his journey, but whom he had never properly thanked. He got in his car and drove to Coach Davis's house. It was a simple neighborhood with old but well-kept houses. Harden parked and rang the doorbell. Coach Davis opened the door, surprised. Harden, how are you? Everything, Coach. I needed to talk to you. They sat on the porch with a cold lemonade that Coach's wife had made. Coach, I've never truly thanked you for not giving up on me, for telling me the hard truths when no one else had the courage, for believing I could be more than I was. Coach Davis smiled, that wise smile of someone who has seen a lot in life. You don't have to thank me, kid. I just did my job. No, you did so much more than your job. You saved me, and I'll never forget that. Coach Davis placed his hand on Harden's shoulder. Do you know what the greatest victory for a coach is? It's not winning a championship. It's seeing a player become a real man. And you did it. You became the man I always knew you could be. Harden's eyes filled with tears. He wasn't ashamed to cry, not anymore. He had learned that vulnerability isn't weakness. It's courage. I want you to continue being my coach, not just in basketball. In life, too. I always have been, kid. Always have been. They stayed there talking for hours about basketball, about life, about dreams and fears. And when Harden finally left, he felt a circle had come full circle. He had returned to his roots. He had honored those who helped him grow. The national championship was approaching. Harden and his team had had a solid but not perfect season. They had lost some games and faced adversity, but each loss had been a lesson, each victory a collective celebration. On the eve of the semifinal, Harden visited the mansion. Donna Luisa was there as always. But this time, something was different. She seemed more fragile, more tired. Harden noticed immediately, "Mrs. Louisa, are you okay?" She smiled, but it was a weak smile. Just a little tired, boy. "Age is catching up." Harden was worried. "You need to rest. You don't need to work so hard anymore. I know, but I like working. It makes me feel useful." Harden sat down beside her. "You are more than useful. You are essential. Not just for me, but for many people you helped without even knowing it." She placed her wrinkled hand over his. "You make me proud, you know? Seeing the man you've become. That's worth more than any paycheck. Donna Luisa, I want to do something for you. I know you have a daughter who lives far away, whom you haven't seen in years because you don't have the money to visit. I want to pay for her ticket. I want you to spend time with her." Her eyes filled with tears. "Boy, you don't have to do this. I know I don't need to. I want to. Please let me do this," she cried. She cried with gratitude, with emotion, with pure joy. And Harden cried with her, because he had learned that true wealth is not in what you have, but in what you give. The semi-final was intense. The opponent was a young, fast team with a lot of individual talent. In the first 2 quarters, they dominated. Harden and his team looked lost and uncoordinated. At halftime, the score was 52-38. The mood in the locker room was tense. Some players were frustrated, others scared. Coach Davis tried to reorganize the strategy, but Harden realized it wasn't a matter of tactics. It was a matter of mindset. He stood up. "Can I say something?" Coach Davis nodded. "I've been here before, in this place, where it feels like everything is lost, where it feels like you're not good enough. And you know what I've learned? That the game isn't over until it's over, that you only truly lose when you give up. So I won't give up, and I hope you won't either." He looked each companion in the eye. "Let's go out on the court and play with our hearts, not to prove anything to anyone, but to prove to ourselves that we are stronger than we think." The team exploded with energy. They clapped, cheered, and returned to the court with renewed determination. The third quarter was a turning point. Harden played with grit, but more importantly, he made the team play together. Every defense was a collective effort. Every attack was thoughtful. And slowly, the score difference began to narrow. 58-50, then 62-58. And by the end of the third quarter, it was 68-66. In the final quarter, it was a battle. Every possession was crucial. Every mistake could cost the victory. But Harden didn't let the pressure get the better of him. He led calmly, intelligently, with true confidence, not arrogance, but the confidence that comes from preparation, hard work, and trust in his teammates. With 10 seconds left, the score was tied at 84-84. Harden had the ball. Everyone expected him to shoot, but he saw 2 defenders coming toward him. Without hesitation, he passed to a teammate in the corner. The teammate took the shot. The ball flew in slow motion, spun in the air, and went in 87-84. The gym exploded. Time was up, victory. But Harden didn't celebrate alone. He ran to hug his teammate who made the basket. Then he hugged everyone else. And when you finally raised your arms in celebration, he looked up to the sky and gave thanks. He gave thanks for the falls, the pain, the lessons, because it had all been worth it. The national championship final would be against Malik's team. It was the rematch everyone wanted to see. The media exploded with analysis, comparisons, and predictions. But both Harden and Malik were in a different place. They didn't see it as a personal war. They saw it as an opportunity to show the world what real basketball means. The night before the finals, Harden couldn't sleep. Not because of nerves, but because of reflection. He thought about the entire journey he had traveled. From arrogance to humility, from selfishness to generosity, from blindness to clarity. He was a different person now, and that person was ready for the biggest test of his life. He got up, walked to his home court, and stood there, alone, in the center. He closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He felt the cool dawn wind on his face. He heard the comforting silence of the night. And for the first time in a long time, he felt complete peace. On the day of the finals, the gym was packed. 20,000 people. Television cameras from around the world. Spotlights, shouts, loud music. But when Harden stepped onto the court, he heard none of that. He was in his own bubble. Focused, calm, ready. Malik and Harden met at center court before kickoff. They hugged. "We're going to have a great game," Malik said. "The biggest," Harden replied, and that's exactly what happened. The finals were epic from the first minute. Harden and Malik were at their best. Every play was met with an even better play. Every basket was followed by heroic defense. It wasn't just basketball. It was art. It was poetry in motion. In the first quarter, Malik dominated. He was inspired, making impossible shots, stealing balls, and masterfully leading his team. The score at the end of the quarter was 28-22 for his team. In the second quarter, Harden responded, but not with arrogance or desperation. With wisdom, he distributed the play, involved his teammates, and kept the team playing at the right pace. And little by little, the lead narrowed. By the end of the second quarter, it was 50-48. At halftime, the gym vibrated. People were witnessing something special, something that transcended sports. In the locker room, Coach Davis didn't need to say much. Just to keep playing like that, with heart, with soul. The third quarter was the most evenly matched. The two teams alternated the lead. Neither team could gain an advantage. Every possession was contested until the last second. At the end, the score was 74-74, and then came the last quarter. The final quarter was an emotional roller coaster. Harden and Malik traded incredible baskets, heroic defense, and plays that would go down in history. With 5 minutes remaining, Malik hit a three-pointer to open up a 4-point lead. 92-88, Harden called a timeout. In the huddle, he looked at his teammates. "We trained for this moment. We sweated for this moment. Now it's time to believe. Let's go and get it." They came back onto the court with fire in their eyes. Harden stole a ball, went on a fast break, and hit a difficult layup. 92-90. On the next play, a teammate made a crucial block. Harden grabbed the rebound and passed to another open teammate in the corner. 3 points. 93-92. The gym was in a frenzy. Malik responded with a mid-range basket. 95-93. But Harden wasn't deterred. He drove in, got fouled, and hit both free throws. 95-95. With a minute left, Malik made another basket. 97-95. His team was ahead, and the clock was running out. Harden brought the ball, controlled the clock, and waited for the play to develop. With 15 seconds left on the clock, he drove in, drew two defenders, and passed to an open teammate. The teammate shot a three-pointer. The ball spun around the rim, once, twice, and dropped in 98-97. Harden's lead with 8 seconds on the clock. Malik caught the ball quickly, crossed the court, stopped in the paint, and shot. The ball flew, hit the rim, bounced, and fell out. The final whistle sounded. Harden and his team had won. The gym erupted in a cacophony of screams, cries, and hugs. Confetti rained down from the ceiling. Harden's team embraced at center court, jumping, screaming, and crying with joy. But Harden didn't immediately join in the celebration. He walked over to Malik, who was kneeling on the ground, hands on his face, devastated by the defeat. Harden knelt beside him and placed a hand on his shoulder. "You played incredibly. You are a champion, no matter the score." Malik looked at him, eyes red. "I wanted to win so much." "I know. And you will win many more times. But today, we learned something bigger than victory. We learned that respect is more important than the result." Malik embraced Harden, and the two stood there, center court, as the world around them cheered and cried. It was a moment of pure humanity, of two competitors who understood that, in the end, they were fighting for the same thing: excellence, resilience, purpose. When they finally stood up, the crowd applauded them both. Not just Harden, the winner, but both of them, because everyone there understood they had just witnessed something rare, sport practiced in its purest, noblest, most human form. Harden lifted the trophy, but he didn't lift it alone. He called on each teammate to hold it with him. Then he called on Coach Davis, And in the post-game interview, when asked about his feelings, he said, "Victory is sweet, but what's sweeter is knowing that we won the right way. Playing as a team, respecting the opponent, honoring the game. That's what I'll remember 20 years from now. Not the score, but the character we showed." The words echoed around the world. In the days following the championship victory, Harden could have drowned himself in parties, interviews, and celebrations. But he chose to do something different. He visited Donna Luisa, who was at her daughter's house, enjoying a well-deserved vacation he had financed. When she opened the door and saw him there, standing there with a shy smile, she couldn't hold back the tears. "Boy, did you come all the way here?" "Of course I came. You are part of this victory." They sat on the house's simple porch, drinking coffee and talking about life. Donna Luisa told stories of her youth, the hardships she faced, the dreams she had to abandon to raise her daughter alone. And Harden listened to every word attentively, with respect and with genuine admiration. "Donna Luisa, I want to do something for you." "You've done a lot, boy." "No, I want you to stop working. I want to ensure that you can live your final years with dignity, without worries." She started to protest, but Harden gently held up his hand. "Please, let me do this. It's not charity. It's gratitude. You changed my life, and I'll never be able to repay that completely, but I want to try." Donna Luisa cried. She cried with gratitude, with emotion, with a happiness she never imagined she'd feel. And Harden cried with her because he'd learned that true victory isn't found in trophies, but in moments like that, moments of genuine human connection, of love expressed in actions. Before leaving, she hugged him tightly and whispered, "You're no longer that arrogant boy I knew. You've become a real man, and I'm very proud of you." Harden left transformed. Once again, because he was learning that transformation isn't a one-time event. It's an ongoing process. Every day, you choose who you want to be. Months later, Harden created a foundation. It wasn't just another athlete's foundation. It was a real project with structure, planning, and a clear purpose to help young people from underprivileged communities develop not only athletic skills, but also character, discipline, and values. The foundation built courts in poor neighborhoods, offered scholarships, and trained coaches to teach basketball with a focus on human development. And Harden was present every step of the way, not just lending his name, but actually working, visiting communities, talking to young people, and setting an example. One of the foundation's first young beneficiaries was a boy named Miguel. He was 13 years old, extremely talented, but also incredibly arrogant. He reminded Harden of what he himself had been. One day after a workout, Harden called Miguel to talk. "You're very good, you know that?" Miguel smiled, full of himself. "I know. I'm the best here." Harden smiled too, but it was the smile of someone who recognized his own story. "Can I tell you something? I was like that too. I thought it was the best, that I didn't need anyone. And do you know what happened?" Miguel frowned curiously. "What?" "I was humiliated. I lost badly, and that defeat was the best thing that ever happened to me, because it taught me that talent without humility gets you nowhere. It only leads to your downfall." Miguel was silent, processing the words. "So you're saying I'm going to lose?" "I'm telling you that you will face challenges, and when you do, you have two choices. Let your ego destroy you or let humility transform you. The choice is yours." Miguel didn't respond immediately, but Harden saw something shift in his eyes. A small crack in the armor of arrogance. It was a beginning. The following season brought new challenges. Harden was older, more experienced, but his body was beginning to show signs of wear and tear. Minor injuries became more frequent. Recovery took longer. He knew the end of his career was approaching. It was no longer a question of if, but when. But instead of denying this reality, he embraced it. He began preparing his exit, not just from the court, but for the next phase of his life. He knew he wanted to continue playing basketball, but as a mentor, as a coach, as someone who could help the next generation avoid the mistakes he made. In an interview, The reporter asked about retirement. Have you ever thought about stopping? Harden smiled, that serene smile of someone who is at peace with the present. Every day, but not with sadness, with gratitude. Because I know I lived this career intensely. I made mistakes, learned lessons, won, lost, but above all, I grew. And when the time comes to hang up my sneakers, I'll be ready. Because I know that basketball doesn't end for me. It just changes form. His words inspired millions of people who were also facing life transitions, retirements, career changes, the end of a cycle. Harden was showing that endings can be beautiful when accepted with grace. In the final game of the regular season, something special happened. The league decided to honor Harden for his transformation, for his contribution to the sport, not only as a player, but as a human being. They made a moving video chronicling his journey, from the arrogant plays of the past to the defeat that transformed him, to the moments of humility and leadership that defined the final years of his career. When the video ended, the entire gym rose to its feet in applause. It was 5 uninterrupted minutes of applause, shouts, and tears. Harden stood at center court, overcome with emotion, trying to hold back tears but failing. Coach Davis was there. Malik was there. Donna Luisa was there in a place of honor. Miguel, the arrogant young man from the foundation, was there, his eyes shining with admiration. The presenter called Harden to speak. He grabbed the microphone, took a deep breath and said, "I don't deserve this honor alone. Because I didn't get here alone. Every person who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. Every person who told me hard truths when I needed to hear them. Every person who showed me that there's something bigger than victories and trophies. You're all part of that." He pointed to Donna Luisa. That woman over there, who many of you don't know, she was the first person to plant the seed of humility in me. When I was at the height of arrogance, she looked me in the eye and saw me for what I really was, a lost boy who needed to find his way. The cameras focused on Donna Luisa, who was crying silently, being hugged by her daughter. I'm grateful for every victory, but I'm even more grateful for the defeats, because they taught me who I really am. And I discovered that I'm much more than a basketball player. I'm a son, a friend, a mentor, a human being in constant evolution. And that's true victory. The gym erupted in applause again. And in that moment, Harden realized he had won the most important battle of all, the battle against himself. 2 years later, Harden officially announced his retirement. It wasn't a dramatic, pompous announcement. It was simple and honest. In a social media post, where he thanked everyone who had been part of his journey and announced that he was entering a new phase. He would be an assistant coach at the team where he played his final years and would dedicate more time to the foundation. A despedida was beautiful, a festive game, with former teammates, opponents who became friends, and thousands of fans who came not only to celebrate the player, but the man he became. Midway through the game, during a special timeout, a chair was brought onto the court. Not just any chair, but the same chair Donna Luisa used to sit on when she took short breaks from cleaning Harden's mansion. Next to the chair, they placed a sign, "Where humility met arrogance and won." Donna Luisa was invited to sit in that chair, in the center of the court, and Harden knelt before her, as he had done years ago when he asked for forgiveness. But this time, it wasn't about asking for forgiveness. It was about thanking her. Donna Luisa, you didn't just clean floors, you cleaned souls, and mine really needed cleaning. The entire gymnasium wept. It wasn't tears of sadness, but of pure emotion, the kind that only happens when you witness something truly beautiful. She placed her trembling hands on his face and said, her voice breaking, "I always knew you'd find your way, boy. I was just waiting for you to be ready to see it." After the ceremony, Harden played his last minutes on the court. He didn't play to impress. He played to feel the texture of the ball in his hands, the squeak of his sneakers on the floor, the sweat running down his face, the sound of the crowd, everything he'd loved since childhood, but at some point had stopped appreciating because he was too busy trying to prove something. On the last shot of his career, he had the ball on offense. He could have attempted a spectacular play, a dunk for the cameras, an impossible three-point shot. But he did something different. He passed the ball to Miguel, the young man from the foundation who was playing alongside him in that festive game. "It's yours, boy. Show them." Miguel looked at him, surprised and excited. He caught the ball, shot it, and made the basket. The entire court cheered. Harden smiled. It was perfection. His final act as a player wasn't about him. It was about passing the baton. It was about showing that legacy isn't about what you achieve, but what you leave behind. Over the next few months, Harden dove headfirst into his life as an assistant coach and mentor. He woke up early, studied plays, analyzed video, but most importantly, talked to the players. He didn't just teach basketball, he taught life. There was a young man on the team named Lucas who was going through exactly what Harden had been through. Immense talent, even bigger ego. His teammates were starting to get annoyed with him. Coach Davis was worried. One day, after a particularly tense practice where Lucas had argued with a teammate, Harden called him aside for a private conversation. "Can I show you something?" Lucas, still irritated, shrugged. "What?" Harden pulled out his phone and showed a video. It was himself years ago, being arrogant with teammates, ignoring instructions, acting like he was bigger than the team. That was me, thinking I owned the world. And do you know where that got me? Lucas watched the video in silence. Harden showed another video. The humiliating loss to Malik. It took me to this fall, the biggest humiliation of my life. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Lucas finally looked at Harden. Why? Because it taught me that talent will take you so far, but character will take you all the way. You can win 1,000 games by being arrogant, but you will only win in life by being humble. Lucas was silent for a long moment. I don't know how to be different. I've always been like this. I know. I was too. But you can learn, and I'll help you. Not because I want you to be like me, but because I want you to be the best version of yourself. That conversation was the beginning of a transformation. Lucas didn't change overnight, but little by little, with patience, examples, tough love when necessary, and encouragement when appropriate. Harden helped him find the balance between confidence and humility. Harden's foundation grew exponentially. What began as a small project in one community became a national movement. Hundreds of courts were built. Thousands of young people were impacted. But most importantly, the focus was not just on creating basketball players. It was on creating good human beings. One of the foundation's pillars was the Dona Luisa principle, a philosophy Harden created in honor of the woman who changed his life. The principle was simple. Treat everyone, regardless of social status, with respect and dignity. From the league president to the court janitor, because you never know who might teach you the greatest lesson of your life. This principle was taught every day. Young people were encouraged to thank the people who worked on the courts, to talk to those who served food, to value those who are often invisible in society. And the results were remarkable. The young people who went through the program weren't just better players. They were better people. They understood that sport was a vehicle, not a destination. The ultimate destination was to become someone who makes a difference in the world. Harden visited the foundation's courts every week. He didn't send subordinates to do the work for him. He was there, covered in dirt and sweat, playing with the kids, talking, listening, and learning too. Because he had discovered that teaching is a two-way street. The more he taught, the more he learned. One rainy afternoon, Harden received a call he wasn't expecting. It was Malik. "Harden, I need a favor." "Sure, speak up. I'm thinking about retiring too. And I wanted your help deciding what to do next." Harden smiled. The journey was complete. The one who had once been his greatest rival now came seeking advice. "Come here to my house. Let's talk." They spent the entire afternoon talking. Malik confessed that he was feeling the weight of age, the injuries piling up, his motivation waning. But more than that, he felt he had a greater purpose waiting for him off the court. "I want to do something that matters, you know? Not just play basketball. I want to leave a legacy. Harden put his hand on his friend's shoulder. You've already left a legacy. You've shown that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. But if you want to expand that legacy, I have a proposal. Which? Come work with me at the foundation. Let's transform lives together. Imagine the impact two former rivals working together can have, showing young people that competition doesn't have to be destructive, that you can compete and still respect and even love your opponent. Malik's eyes lit up. That would be amazing. And so began one of the most beautiful partnerships in sports. Harden and Malik, once fierce adversaries, now worked side by side, transforming communities, inspiring young people, and showing that sports at their best can unite, not divide. 5 years after his retirement, Harden was invited to speak at an international conference on education through sport. The auditorium held over 5,000 people, educators, athletes, business people, and politicians. When he took the stage, the applause was deafening. But he wasn't nervous. He had a message, and he knew it was important. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I've always been this humble, inspiring guy that you might think I am. The truth is, I was arrogant. I was cruel. I was blind. And I'm ashamed of who I was. Silence filled the auditorium, but I'm not ashamed to admit it. Because admitting our mistakes is the first step to fixing them. I made fun of a cleaning lady. I treated people as if they were inferior. I thought my talent gave me the right to be better than others. And life taught me in the harshest way possible that I was wrong. He told the whole story. Donna Luisa, the defeat, the transformation, the lessons. And when he finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. I divide my life into 2 parts, before and after learning humility. And I can say with absolute certainty that the second part is infinitely better. Not because I won more games, but because I won the most important battle, the battle against my own ego. He paused, looked at the audience, and that's my message to you today. No matter how talented you are, no matter how successful you are, if you don't have humility, you have nothing. Because in the end, when the spotlight fades, when the trophies gather dust, the only thing that will matter is the kind of person you were, the lives you touched, the love you spread. The auditorium erupted in applause. But Harden didn't feel like a star being applauded. He felt like a teacher who had just planted seeds, and he knew some of those seeds would germinate, grow, and become trees that would provide shade for others. By the age of 40, Harden had become a respected figure not only in the basketball world, but in society as a whole. He was invited to serve on the boards of NGOs, served as a mentor to young entrepreneurs, and lectured at universities. But her greatest joy was still working directly with the Foundation's young people, seeing their eyes light up when they learned something new, seeing transformation happen in real time. Seeing boys and girls who were once arrogant and lost become focused and compassionate young people. Miguel, that arrogant young man he had mentored years ago, was now one of the Foundation's top trainers. And he was excellent, because he understood arrogant young people. He had been one himself, and now he could guide them through the transformation he himself had experienced. One day, after a workout, Miguel approached Harden. "You saved my life, you know?" Harden shook his head. "No, you saved your own life. I just showed you the way. But if you hadn't insisted on me, if you had given up when I was unbearable, I would never give up. Because someone didn't give up on me. And that's the cycle. We receive grace and we pass grace on." Miguel hugged Harden, and in that hug were years of gratitude, of transformation, of love. Donna Luisa lived her final years with dignity and comfort, thanks to Harden. She no longer worked, spent time with her daughter and grandchildren, and occasionally visited the Foundation to see the work being done. Every time she visited, young people lined up to meet her. To them, she was almost a legend, the woman who had transformed Harden, who had planted the seed of humility in one of the greatest players in history. She was always embarrassed by the attention. But Harden insisted, "Mrs. Louisa, you need to understand how important you are. You didn't just change my life. You changed the lives of all these young people. Because I changed because of you, and now I can help them." She smiled, that sweet, humble smile. "I just did what any decent person would do. I told the truth." No, most people don't tell the truth. They say what others want to hear. You had the courage to say what I needed to hear. And that changed everything. During a special visit, the foundation inaugurated a new court. Its name was Donna Luisa Court, where humility wins. When the name was revealed, Donna Luisa cried profusely. Never in her life had she imagined she would be honored like this. A simple woman who worked her entire life cleaning houses now had her name immortalized on a court where hundreds of young people would learn not only basketball, but also values. Harden hugged her and whispered, "You deserve this and much more." At 50, Harden wrote a book. It wasn't a technical book about basketball. It was a book about life, about transformation, about humility. The title was simple and powerful. From Arrogance to Gratitude, How Falling Taught Me to Fly. The book became an instant bestseller. Not because people wanted to read about a famous player, but because they wanted to read a genuine story of redemption. A story that showed that change is possible. That no matter how lost you are, there is always a way back. He dedicated the book to 3 people. To Donna Luisa, who taught me to see, to Coach Davis, who taught me to listen, to Malik, who taught me respect. The book has been translated into dozens of languages. Harden went on a speaking tour around the world. In each city, he told his story, and in each city he saw people crying, identifying, and transforming. He received thousands of messages. People told him how the book had changed their marriages, their careers, their lives. Parents said they were using the book's principles to educate their children. Teachers said they were applying the lessons in their classrooms, and Harden felt humbled by all this, because he knew he was just a messenger. The message was much bigger than him. The message was universal. Humility transforms. Arrogance destroys. At an event celebrating the Foundation's 20th anniversary, Harden stood on stage, surrounded by hundreds of young people who had gone through the program over the years. Many were now successful adults, doctors, engineers, teachers, professional athletes. But they all shared one thing in common: strong values. One by one, they took the stage to thank everyone, to share how the Foundation, how Harden, and how the principles they learned there had shaped their lives. A young woman, now a lawyer, spoke through tears. "I came in here arrogant, thinking I was better than everyone because I came from a wealthy family, and Harden taught me that no one is better than anyone else, that we are all human, fighting our own battles. And that lesson changed not only my life, but the way I practice law today. I advocate for the vulnerable because I learned here that they deserve as much respect as anyone else." A young man, now a doctor, said, "I learned here that true success isn't how much money you make, but how many lives you touch." And today, when I treat my patients, I remember the Donna Luisa principle. I treat the CEO and the janitor with the same respect. And that makes me not only a better doctor, but a better human being, story after story, life after life, transformation after transformation. When everyone finished, Harden stood up to speak. But the words wouldn't come. He was too emotional. Finally, he managed, "You have no idea what a gift you gave me today, because you showed me that everything was worth it. Every sweat, every tear, every moment of doubt. You are living proof that one person can make a difference. And if I made a difference in your lives, you made even more in mine. Thank you for letting me be a part of your journeys." Harden was now 65. His hair was graying, his body no longer that of an athlete, but his spirit was stronger than ever. He still worked at the Foundation, now more as a mentor to mentors. Sharing decades of accumulated wisdom, Donna Luisa had passed away a few years earlier. At the age of 87, surrounded by her family and Harden, who held her hand until her last breath. Before she left, she had said, "You've made a beautiful life, boy. I'm proud." And Harden, through tears, had replied, "Only because you taught me how." Quadra Donna Luisa remained the heart of the Foundation. And every young person who entered heard the story of a humble cleaning lady who had the courage to speak the truth to an arrogant young man, and in doing so changed the course of countless lives. On a sunny afternoon, Harden sat in the stands on that court, watching the young players train. He smiled, the smile of someone at peace, of someone who has lived life to the fullest, of someone who has made mistakes, fallen, gotten up, learned, and taught. A young man approached shyly. "Mr. Harden, may I ask you a question?" "Of course. If you could go back in time, would you change anything?" Harden thought for a moment. He could say he would change everything, that he would never have been arrogant, that he would never have humiliated Donna Luisa, that he would never have lost that humiliating final. But that wouldn't be true. "No," he said finally. "I wouldn't change a thing, because every mistake taught me a lesson. Every fall taught me to get back up better. Every pain made me more compassionate. If I changed the past, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And I like who I am today." The young man smiled, absorbing the wisdom. "Thanks." As the young man walked away, Harden looked up at the blue sky and whispered, "Thank you, Donna Luisa, for not giving up on me, for teaching me that true victory is not in the scoreboard, but in the heart." And in that moment a gentle breeze blew, and Harden felt like a hug from all the people who believed in him when he didn't deserve it, from all the people who loved him when he was hard to love, from all the people who saw potential when he only saw arrogance. He stood up, took a deep breath, and walked back onto the court. Because the work is never done. The transformation never stops. And as long as there's a young person who needs to learn that humility is strength, not weakness, there will be purpose. And Harden had discovered that living with purpose is the only way to truly live. Harden's journey teaches us that talent can open doors, but it's character that keeps you on the right side of them. Arrogance is a gilded prison that isolates you from everything that truly matters. Genuine human connections, true growth, and inner peace. He learned that the most important people in our lives are often those who don't get the spotlight. They're the Donna Luisas of the world, simple people who work hard, who speak hard truths out of love, who see potential when everyone else sees only problems. He learned that defeat, when accepted with humility, is a better teacher than 1,000 victories achieved with arrogance. And above all, he learned that true greatness isn't measured in trophies, contracts, or fame. It's measured in how many lives you've touched, how many people you've helped rise up, how much love you've spread throughout the world. Harden mocked his mansion's cleaning lady and learned a lesson he never forgot: that every human being deserves respect, regardless of social standing, and that sometimes the greatest lessons come from the most unlikely people. And that is a lesson we all need to learn. Because in the end, we will not be remembered for what we achieved, but for who we became and how we treated people along the way.